There's been a huge update to the Justin Roiland situation. A new chapter has dropped, and man, what a plot twist this one came with. I'm sure all of you already know, but I'll just briefly bring you up to speed since it's been a couple months. It recently came to light that Justin Roiland has been secretly battling domestic battery and false imprisonment charges from his ex-girlfriend. He was accused following an incident in 2020, and since then, over the last few years, has gone to pre-trials and hearings about the situation. And all of it was revealed earlier this year, which shocked the world and left the Rick and Morty fans thoroughly squanched. Following this news, Justin Roiland was fired from Adult Swim, he was fired from Solar Opposites, and he resigned from his development studio, Squanch Games. It was also scheduled to go into the next phase of all of this with a trial. However, today, everyone's trick hole got glorbed. It was announced that the domestic violence charges against Justin Roiland, this whole case, was dismissed. According to a spokesperson for the district attorney's office, they said, "We dismissed the charges today because there was insufficient evidence to prove the case beyond reasonable doubt." They further added that significant additional information came to light. That additional information that came to light that surfaced here in the fourth quarter with the buzzer beater to stop this from going to trial is not elaborated upon. It hasn't been made public, obviously, so we can only speculate. I have no fucking idea what it could have been. Maybe Justin Roiland sent a rough draft for Rick and Morty Season 9 to the district attorney and he loved it so much he dismissed the case on the spot. There's no telling. Nothing about the case really has ever been made public. Not even the actual incident that occurred in 2020. None of it has been made public, so a lot of this has just been through legal speak and pretty vague about the actual occurrence as well as the particulars around it. So this additional information that eventually led to the case being dismissed, we don't know what it was. So because of that, it's left a lot of people on Twitter to start talking about how foul play could have been involved here, some under-the-table dealings, bribery, or things like that, corruption. I don't know about all of that. There's really no telling since, again, none of the information about any of this was ever really made public, though I will admit I do think it is a little odd how quickly it got thrown out once it made it into the media cycle. This has been something that's been going on for a few years now. I'm assuming there must have been some level of substantiated evidence behind the claims. Otherwise, how the fuck would it have made it this far along the legal process? I would imagine this would have got slapped down immediately if they never had any evidence in the first place, just this giant fucking nothing burger. I assume there must have been something, but now they're citing an insufficient evidence to support the claims. So I do get why people are a little heebie-jeebied about it. I do understand. And like I said in my last video, I am still surprised that Adult Swim and Solar Opposites both acted so quickly to shit-can Roiland before he was ever even found guilty on the charges. I assumed at the time that they must have had additional information that the public didn't have into the insights and the inner workings of this case, and they fired Roiland based on that. But it's looking like that wasn't the case since he is presumably innocent now since this case has been dropped. So that leads me to believe that either they acted in order to wipe the dog shit of his reputation off of their shoe as quickly as possible as to not hurt their brand, and it was just bad optics to keep him around, or they fired him based on all of the other allegations against him, some of which were made by co-workers and still current employees of these productions. None of these have been fully confirmed, so of course take them with a grain of salt, but a lot of his co-workers have come out very strong against him, citing that he was extremely lazy and actually hadn't had an active role in the development of Rick and Morty in a long time, refusing to work, difficult to work with. And the way some other colleagues talk about him make it sound like he was an actual toddler in the office, so they'd say they didn't even know he was in until they'd hear his dogs or his remote control toy car zooming around the office. So they describe him as just being difficult to work with and that they didn't really like his presence, which I guess may have been something Adult Swim and Solar Opposites would have taken into account. And then a lot of these degenerate DMs started leaking. Of course, none of the sources are 100% confirmed as authentic or anything. He would flirt as if he was actually fucking Morty from the show in real life, so he'd say things like insane in the membrane and auga, boobies, boobies. The text messages were really fucking embarrassing. And there are even allegations that at least one of the people that he was flirting with was underage, and others were people he had worked with before. None of it has been confirmed beyond a shadow of a doubt, as 100% real or anything, but this was just another big shitstorm that Justin Roiland was facing in the midst of all of this and a lot of allegations. Now, since the case has been dismissed, he has made a statement, but he doesn't address anything outside of the felonies he was facing. Roiland says, "I've always known that these claims were false and I had never had any doubt that this day would come. I'm thankful that this case has been dismissed, but at the same time, I'm still deeply shaken by the horrible lies that were reported about me during this process. Most of all, I'm disappointed that so many people were so quick to judge without knowing the facts, based solely on the word of an embittered ex trying to bypass due process and have me cancelled. That it may have succeeded, even partially, is shameful. However, now that the legal case is ended, I'm determined to move forward and focus both on my creative projects and restoring my good name." I do think it's a little odd that he's choosing to use the word cancelled here when all of these charges were private. None of this was ever made public. The X has never come out publicly. None of the information has ever been made public. All of this was handled behind closed doors and only made it to the public eye because of some sleuthing from media outlets, I believe, since the trial was not too far into the future. If the allegations are actually false, I still don't know if cancellation would have been the motivation behind it, because I feel like if the goal was cancellation, the ex would have come forward and publicly revealed all of this information instead of trying to handle it legally. Like, that wouldn't really make sense for that goal if it was cancellation to try and handle it like behind closed doors. I feel like they would have wanted to do everything in their power to like publicly drag Justin Roiland around and talk about all of this. Now, as you can imagine, a lot of people aren't super happy about Roiland's response here, citing that he doesn't really seem to understand that even though he was able to prove his innocence to the legal system and prove at least that the charges didn't have enough evidence to support them, they weren't strong enough to lead to a conviction on the accusations, that innocence wasn't proven to the public. And in fact, the public has never even known exactly what the fuck even happened in the first place with the incident. So a lot of people took issue with him talking about how disappointed he is that people believed lies from his embittered ex, which I do agree is kind of odd because, again, there's never been any specifics about what happened or even what this whole thing is even about, other than the fact that Roiland, for a few years now, has had 2 felonies that he's been fighting: domestic violence and false imprisonment. And people were talking about like, oh wow, that's pretty concerning that that's happening. Those are scary charges. So that's all people have ever had access to, and even now, after the case has been dismissed, people still don't know what the fuck was even going on to begin with. All of the evidence and everything has been kept under lock and key, so even though the charges got dropped, for a lot of people, that's not good enough since he wasn't proven innocent publicly, since none of the information is public, so a lot of people are still saying that there is a chance that there really was a victim here that was just unable to provide enough evidence to convince others that this event happened, even if it really did. So it's just been a mess. So all the public can do is look at the fact that he was battling these very serious felonies and say, fuck, that's not good. That is scary. Those aren't, light felonies by any means. That's the only information that the public has ever had access to and the only thing that they can base their perspective on. Now that the case has been dismissed, obviously that changes a bit. And if all of the allegations are truly false, then that is a crime in and of itself and should be taken very seriously. If it is proven that everything that has happened was based upon an embittered ex lying to ruin Justin Roiland's reputation and try and ruin his life, that is a very serious thing as well that also needs to be addressed. So the whole thing is just a pretty fucking horrible situation top to bottom. Again, he doesn't talk about any of the other allegations, at least not yet. I imagine he probably will going forward, especially the ones from the coworkers and the DMs. But anyway, just wanted to give a quick update on all of this, and that's about it. See ya.